Hey guys, Darren Asbury here with Revital Outdoors. Thank you for joining us on another exciting podcast. Tonight we have Mr. Spencer Shuffield from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Spencer won the very first BFL Arkie Division event last year on Lake Hamilton. This year the Arkie Division is starting again on Lake Hamilton, so Spencer will be in the field hopefully to defend his title. He's absolutely phenomenal on Lake Hamilton. He's also really good on Lake Ouachita. All throughout the country, Spencer knows how to catch them. You see him on the MLF Pro Circuit. Previous to that, he fished the FLW Tour, and he comes from a very distinguished family in the fishing industry. He's the son of Mr. Legendary Ron Shuffield. Before we get started, go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on social media, and make sure you're getting notified. You hit the notify button so you're getting notified when all of our content's dropping with new podcasts and all that. So without further ado, let's bring him in, Mr. Spencer Shuffield from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hey, buddy, how you doing this evening?
Doing good. You?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again. And I know you're fixing to get started on the road fishing the pro circuit again this year. How are you looking forward to that?
I'm looking forward to it. Yep, leave Sunday afternoon, and definitely looking forward to it. It's been a long, rough off season, so I'm ready to get back on the water and hopefully come out the gate swinging.
Yeah, I hear you. I saw you just got your new boat. It's all wrapped out. You're running that Blazer Mercury package again this year. I know those guys have been really good with you. You got great sponsors, especially Horizon there in the state of Arkansas. So it's cool to see not only a company in the state of Arkansas represent the local kid, but just back you and everything that you've done. That's just really, really awesome. So besides, real quick before we get too involved with Lake Hamilton, besides the goal of winning a tournament on the pro circuit, what other goals do you have for yourself going into this year?
Angler of the year. That's
I would love that.
I mean, it's always something you want to do every year you fish on tour is to win AOI. I mean, and I've literally done it in every tournament trail here in the state. But going out those years, that was actually a realistic goal. I mean, that's what I want to do. I want to win Angler of the Year in ABTT or Angler of the Year in Mr. Bass or Angler of the Year in the BFL. I mean, that was the goal on tour even before I had my 4-year off streak there. It was you always wanted to win, but you kind of thought, man, I don't think I could win against these guys, be that consistent because there was just so many good sticks out there then, and I'm 22 years old, But now I feel like I'm so mature in my fishing game that that literally is my main priority is to win Angler of the Year above anything else. And I feel like that's where it should be, other than that, a championship or something,
Right. So just so I'm clear, like first year you were on tour as a boater for the FLW Tour. Your rookie season was 2012, I believe, correct?
2013. It was 2012 when I won Co-Angler of the Year, and then 13 is when I went pro, and I fished 13, 14, 15 out of the front, and then I was off 16, 17, 18, 19, and come back on 20.
Good for you, man. So yeah, I know. For any of the listeners out there that want to pursue this, that things do happen in life. Spencer is a true testament to that. He got through them. Very brave what he had to get through, but he just got his priorities right, and he's a showing figure of you can get back out there and chase the dreams that you want to. But he never got away from fishing. I know that even though you weren't fishing the tour anymore, you took a step back. You had to get some priorities straight, which was awesome to see you do. But you stayed fishing. You were fishing the Arkansas Bass Team Trail. You still fished the BFLs. You fished Mr. Bass in there. I think along the way you got Angler of the Year in all of those. So, that's just don't ever put those fishing rods down, because whether you're fishing the highest level that you can or just the weekend warrior stuff, fishing is still fishing, and you still want to keep those skills honed in.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I have people ask me all the time about that. It's just time on the water. I mean, there's no substitute for time on the water. It's so important. And, I've only fished probably 10 times since September when I got back from the championship in Wisconsin. And 4 of those times have been in the last 2 weeks. And I can tell, I mean, just physical fishing shape. I'm not exactly physically where I was in August when I quit, because it takes a lot to stand on the front of the boat for 12 to 14 hours in a day, and mainly you stand on 1 foot all day. So you take a few months off, and you're like, dang, man, this is tiring.
It definitely, I've always said that fishing, looking back throughout the years of professional fishing and just following it as a fan, being involved with it myself, being in the industry, one of the things that I always kind of laugh at is energy drink companies not taking advantage of the fishing platform to sponsor because it's not a radical sport enough. And I'm like, I remember being in college and going fishing with some of the football players, and by 1 or 2 o'clock, they can't do it anymore. I mean, it's a very physically demanding sport.
Oh, no doubt. And it's a different kind of physical fatigue than normal stuff, like going to the gym or, like you said, playing a football game or a basketball game. I mean, that stuff lasts for 40 to 60 minutes is all. I mean, we're in that. And it ain't necessarily like physical contact. It's just the strain you put on your body and the way it's turned and the movements and the motions, and you're standing on a hard front deck of the boat, but you're dealing with water wave movement and stuff. There's a lot to it, for sure.
That's a fact.
And mentally is where to really get you.
Yeah, mentally very, very draining, especially if you're having a tough tournament and you run into the guy that's like, well, man, I'm catching them. Or, you feel like, for instance, today down here in Florida, there was a lot of hype going into this. I think it's a college event happening right now on the Harris chain.
Yeah.
And they smashed him today. Like, where'd that come from? Like, it's pretty amazing to those things happen. But, that's just part of the game that we play. And I guess that's ultimately why we still love it.
Oh, yeah, sure. No doubt.
Sure. So, well, let's get into last year. You had a really solid season on the MLF Pro Circuit. I think, you did say you go to the championship. I think you had a couple top 20 finishes in there. You had a really solid year, man. But you started the year off with a win in the BFL Arkie Division on Lake Hamilton. I know Hamilton's in your backyard. You've guided a little bit on Hamilton in the past. It's one of your favorite lakes that there is. I have to say it's up there with my favorite lakes too, as well as other anglers like Scott Suggs and Stetson Blaylock and anglers like that from Arkansas. But walk us through kind of, did you practice? What kind of baits were you throwing? Just a little bit about your tournament last year.
Well, I'll start from the start on that one. I actually did not plan on fishing that BFL on Hamilton. I went out the afternoon before the tournament. I hadn't even signed up for it yet. I went out the afternoon before the tournament because I was supposed to leave. Practice started last year. We only had 2 days of practice in our tour events, and they started on Mondays. So it kind of allowed you that extra day. If the tournament was on Saturday, you could travel on a Sunday. But there was we had it was in between our first and second tour event of last year when they had the BFL, but it was the weekend before practice started on Smith Lake.
Okay.
And so I went actually and pre-fished Smith Lake. I never pre-fished for a tour event ever. It was only the second time I'd ever done it in my career, but it was only 5.5 hours away from here to the house. And I thought, man, those conditions are probably going to be the same when we get back. They weren't. They were completely different. But so I went down and pre-fished, and I came back and, we had the 13 days off. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go on down there. I'm going to leave Saturday around 1 or 2. That way I'll get down there about dark, and then Sunday I'll just go fun fishing somewhere there around Smith. There's a little lake down there called Long Lake or something. I can't remember, but it was really good. And I won't fish the BFL, but I went out that afternoon, Friday afternoon, to catch some crappie. I was going to fry some fish before I left, and the water was super muddy. And when it gets muddy on Hamilton, it is unbelievable how good it is, but you have to know exactly what to do. And if you're not doing the right thing, you'll think, man, this place is the worst place in the world you could fish. It's horrible. But if you know what to do, it is like, man, they're jumping the boat, kind of like Grand Lake would be. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I've been there, done that way too many times.
Yeah. So I went out crappie fishing and caught like 8 or 10 crappie real quick, about 30 minutes or so. And I thought, man, I'm going to pick up a little crankbait. Water's muddy. I guarantee you that, they're probably stomping it. And I knew they had the BFL coming up the next day. And I thought, man, if I could just catch like 2 5-pounders real quick, because I know that this is the deal. But if I could catch like 2 5s, 4 to 5-pounders real fast, to kind of clue me in, to just assure me that that's what I was doing, I would sign up and stay and fish this thing. Lo and behold, the first stretch I pulled over on, it was a good stretch, but not like a tournament stretch. I caught a 6 and a 5 in like the first 10 minutes, and then another 3.5. I was like, well, I guess I will fish them all. And I thought, nah, I ain't gonna fish them. We'll go ahead and leave. And I thought, I was running back around. I thought, I'll pull over on this stretch real quick. If I get a bite over here and it's a 3+, I'll definitely stop and fish tomorrow or stay and fish tomorrow. And I whipped over it because it wasn't even a good stretch, but it had a couple of the right ingredients. I whipped over real quick. On my third cast, I caught another 4-pounder. I was like, yeah, I'm going to fish tomorrow. So I did. I called the BFL director and asked him, I said, do you have any openings left? And he said, I think they had 4 more co-anglers than they did boaters. And I said, all right, I'm going to fish. So I signed up and got in. And that the morning of the tournament, it was really cold. So I knew it was going to take some time for that bite to develop because when it gets really muddy over there, they're always shallow in Hamilton anyways for the most part. Your bigger ones in the wintertime. But when it gets muddy, they get really shallow when you catch them. They're not shallow to begin with, but once the sun gets up, they're going to get, I'm talking on the dirt. And so it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock. It really started heating up. And I only had like 2 fish, but it was no big deal. I mean, I knew once they started biting, it was going to be Katie bar the door. And sure enough, man, it was like we had 2.5 hours left to go. And I had 2 for like 5 pounds or something like that. And they just, the little wind picked up. And it's been bright bluebird sun. And they just went to biting. I mean, every spot you'd stop, you'd catch a 3 to 5 pounder. It was all. It should have had a giant bag in that tournament, man. Back-to-back spots, I lost a 6 and a 7, and should have been up there in the mid-20s. But Hamilton's a special place when it gets muddy like that. You can take a little shallow diving red color crankbait and just really catch them on specific little rock places or places where people put out Christmas trees, or something like that, have a little Christmas top out on the corner of a boat dock. I've just got a lot of little places like that on Hamilton, probably 50 to 100 places like that, high percentage spots that you can pull up, make 2 or 3 casts, don't get a bite, you pull the trolling up and go to the next one. And that's what it just puts you over the edge, against the field is when you got that many places you can go and hit. But when you got that much to hit, well, as I do in tournament, you can only weigh in 5. And, half of them places probably haven't seen a bait yet in the course of the day because they're that specific of a spot, spot. So that's the deal on Hamilton. But when it gets muddy like that, that's the deal, man. It's a shallow game with little crankbait, and that's how I caught every one of them fish.
Okay, cool. Well, I have to ask because it's just a notorious lake for this bait. When it gets muddy like that, does that eliminate the Alabama rig bite, or is it still a player for the guys that know where to go with it?
I'm sure it's still a player, with all white swim baits or something like that. It's not a player for me. I don't throw it. I only throw an A-rig if I absolutely know I have to throw it to win. And Hamilton's not necessarily the lake that you have to throw it to win. Now, Ouachita, you have to throw it to win. Just because it's so big. And there's places that they haven't seen it yet that winter. You know what I mean? Hamilton, heck, by the time Christmas gets here, every bass swimming in that place seen A-rig 4 times. You know what I mean? More than likely.
And the stripers. I mean, if you want to have a fun day on Hamilton in the wintertime with an A-rig, you're probably going to catch a bunch of stripers.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't like throwing it. I really don't on Hamilton. It's something that rarely ever comes out of my rod box on Hamilton. I've got like 3 little places over there. I'll throw an A-rig in every single tournament, and they're places that I know nobody else throws an A-rig on but me. It's something in like 35 foot of water that is snagged up on bottom, but it's always been there for years, and there's always usually a 3 to 5 pounder sitting on it or something if you get bit there, So
Right. Cool. So a little red crankbait. I have to ask. Because, again, this is a bait that's notorious in the area. You'll know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to give it away. Was it a newer style red crankbait or an older style crankbait?
It was actually a custom painted Yo-Zuri 1.5. Yep.
Really?
What I call it. One of them was. Yep. I had a custom painted. It was purple bite, kind of a bright red sides, and a real bright orange belly.
Really? So, okay. I mean, that's what they're keyed in on that year. One of the primary baits I continue to read about on Lake Hamilton, especially in the wintertime, is a big jig.
Yep.
And I know there's a lot of crawfish that live in Lake Hamilton, so that's resembling the crawfish. So you can't ever go wrong this time of year, in my opinion. I know you just said it, with something red and orange, especially in a Ozark lake like that in Arkansas.
Yep. Yeah, I throw a jig a lot on Hamilton when the water gets muddy like that too, black and blue, obviously. figuring out if they want a black and blue chunk or a sapphire blue chunk. It's one of the two. But I just don't catch fish on jigs nowadays, hardly. I mean, in certain situations, you catch them on a jig. Don't get me wrong. But more than anything around the springtime, But a jig just isn't something I catch a lot of fish on anymore. For one, I don't throw it a whole lot, but like I used to. I like flipping around docks and stuff like that. But nowadays, you got the wobblehead, and that pretty much takes place of a football jig, in my opinion. So I'll pretty much throw that. If I would have thrown a football jig back in the day, now I'm throwing a wobblehead usually.
Right. I know that's one of your strong suits is throwing that wobblehead. You've been throwing it since it really became popular. In fact, I think you really started to. So let's back up a little bit. In 2015, it was a Bassmaster Elite Series event on Table Rock.
Yep.
That it was Arkansas native.
Davis.
That's right. So he did really well in that tournament throwing a wobblehead. And I know right after that we had a Beaver Lake tournament, and you were talking about you did really well in that tournament. I think you got a top 20 in that event. Mm-hmm. You were talking about it, and it just seemed like the science that you had put behind that bait and how to fish it, not necessarily the crawl that you put on the back of it, but the science behind the bait itself and had the speed to throw it and how often you'd be chunking off rocks and all that. You had it dialed in.
Yeah. Well, at first I felt like it was just something different. That's why it worked so well. And obviously, Mark Davis went up there and was catching 100+ fish a day on Table Rock at gin clear water, see the bottom 20 foot deep on a wobblehead and a casting rod. You could obviously tell it's because those were virgin fish to it. They had never seen a wobblehead before, had no clue what that thing was.
Right.
You'd probably be lucky if you got a bite on it, up there, honestly, unless you threw it in dirty water. And I kind of felt like it was a deal around here, but I've since realized that it's not around here. They bought it because it's that it works that well in those situations. For one, it's weedless, so you can literally throw it out over a brush pile and reel it right through it like a Texas rig worm. Football jig hangs everything it touches, it seems like. I mean, it'd go out of its way to run over and hang something, it sems like. But a wobblehead doesn't. A wobblehead doesn't. It just comes and deflects right off that stuff. And it's just I use a flipping hook on the back of it too. I throw the ones that you can put your own hook on. So, I pair it up with a 4 or 5/0 owner jungle flipping hook. And so I get to drive the dang metal to them when they bite it.
That's a saltwater hook. I mean, that's honestly a hook that I've heard down in Florida that guys are using like live bait fishing off piers for tarpon and big snook. So you can, like you just said, you can drive the wood. You are not going to flex that sucker at all.
Absolutely not. And the hook point don't roll on it at all either. That's what I like. I use Gamagotsus for most everything, but they will occasionally roll a hook point, occasionally. Just because they're so dang sharp and they just bring that tip out such a fine point, that every now and then you'll roll that in. But I never have on that owner flipping hook. Now I have other owner hooks, but not their flipping hook. But yeah, I mean, I like the wobblehead around here. I mean, there hasn't been many places on tour that I've ever had much success on it since when it first come out. But I'm sure if I had the knowledge of those lakes I do around here, there would be a lot of places that I would be throwing a wobblehead. And I'm sure anybody that's listening to this, they probably know. I mean, even like a Harris chain or a Toho, I guarantee you there's places they eat a wobblehead on them lakes. I would never roll up down there and have one tied on. Probably should, but I wouldn't have one tied on down there, more than likely. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Down there on it,
Oh, they will. I mean, Florida, wobblehead, shell bar. I don't know anything about that, but I would try it. I'm just saying.
I'm sure it works, no doubt. I did throw one at Rayburn some last week when I was down there for cutoff, and I caught several on it. So, a place like that, but that sets up a lot like Ouachita,
right.
A lot like Ouachita. So.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, looking forward to that event. Looks like you're going to be able to fish it. I know you have a very busy schedule, but looks like you're going to be able to fish the tournament again this year on Lake Hamilton for the BFL. I think you said you're not fishing them all, but you're going to fish some. That is one of them. How do you plan on maybe defending your title, or what does an angler need to think about that's coming to that tournament, you think?
Well, unless we get a big rain and it gets muddy again like it did last year, it'll be a jerkbait, A-rig, jig type of deal, deeper, You do catch them shallow, when the water's clear over there this time of year, but you got to have a lot of wind. If you ain't got a lot of wind, you just can't get them fish to bite. So I would say you would have to come prepared to throw a jerkbait and A-rig for sure.
Okay, what's the water temperature right now? I know you said you've been on the lake a little bit, so what are we looking at water temperature wise?
It's about 49. I was out there Tuesday and it was 49.
Okay. And then I just have to ask one last question about Hamilton, just, breaking it down a little bit of a pattern, because it was one of my favorite things to do back home in Grand Lake, and I know it has a lot of it, is are the docks going to play at all, you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, almost every fish I catch over comes off a dock, usually, especially shallow. If the water's clear, though, they're more out there around that brush out on them points and humps. It seems like those fish they really school up around them brush piles when the water's clear. But when it's dirtier, they get up there on them shallower piles. But if you got wind, you'll catch them around them shallower piles too, even in clear water.
Okay. And there's a few docks and a few points on Lake Hamilton, just a few.
Just a few, yeah.
Just a few. So, well, that's really exciting. So, before we let you off here, Spencer, I want to go back to, you're fixing to load up and go to Rayburn. Are you looking forward to that event? How do you think that's going to play out? I mean, I know that's a little bit off subject from the BFL, but I mean, I know you got to be looking forward to getting back out there, man.
I am most definitely looking forward to getting back on Rayburn and getting the year started. Didn't finish real strong last year. Just the last 2 or 3 tournaments was kind of rough. In a sense, I mean, I finished 11th at Potomac, but last year was just a weird year for me. I don't know, I mean, I didn't juke when I should have juked, didn't jive when I was supposed to jive. It was just one of them things that just didn't get a couple of them big bites I needed to have gotten like I did in 2020. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there this year and starting over. We're going to some places I've got good history on, like a Champlain. Never been to the James River, but I've always done well on Rayburn. And I really feel like last year I feel like I kind of come together with Harris Chain during the Bass Pro Tour event down there in May. I know it was May, but I feel like I fell in love with that place down there then. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
Good for you, man. Good for you. So that's a heck of a place. I was looking over the MLF Pro Circuit schedule this year. It looks pretty strong, not only in the fact that it's strong, but I really think MLF is doing a great job of making sure that the Pro Circuit guys and the Bass Pro Tour anglers, for that matter, they're hitting lakes when they're at their prime, so you guys can have some fun. I mean, it's not taking the game out of fishing, but it's always fun to see you guys go out there and always have a tournament that takes between 80 and 100 pounds after 4 days to win the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. And Rayburn's one of them places, no doubt. And so is Harris Chain. I mean, we're starting out back to back, going to 2, big fish tournaments. So, it's a toss up. Rayburn could take more weight to win, and Rayburn probably going to take more at Harris Chain. But we got a lot of cold weather that's come in here in the last week and a half. When I was at Rayburn week before last, before cutoff, the water temp was 63 down there. So it's probably going to be 10 degrees colder now than it was. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely gonna factor. Something about fish and cold weather. They don't like it, but then they sometimes love it too, for sure.
Yeah, so. I like the cold water. I mean, the colder the better. Going back to Hamilton, the best temperature over there, in my opinion, is 44 to 48. That's when the fishing is the absolute best on Lake Hamilton, is when it gets that cold. I've even got a memory of back when I was probably 8 or 9. We'd gotten a lot of cold weather, and the back of the pockets were frozen. Actually, not the back, but even out towards the mouth of the bays in Hamilton, a lot of them were frozen. And we were taking a hair jig. I know, it's a big thing around here is a little hair jig. And we would throw it up on top of the ice and drag it off to the edge to let it go in the water, and they'd have it when you pick up on it. It was pretty awesome in the back of some of the creeks. We did it in like Little Mazarn, Big Mazarn, and I'll never forget that. I just thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. You'd throw your bait up on the ice, and it'd hit the ice, and ding, like that, and then you would reel it, and that hair jig just be skimming across the ice, and then you'd let it, fall in the water, and you flip your bell, let it go to the bottom, you pick up on one and have it swimming off with it. It was pretty cool.
Were you catching any crappie doing that too?
No, just all bass.
Really? Wow. Okay.
That was
okay.
20-something years ago when we did that one time. I'm 32
Wow.
now. That was when I was probably 8 to 10 years old. I remember doing that. So, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So, and that sounds crazy, but I believe growing up, who your mentor was in fishing, there were things like that only he could make happen.
Yeah, probably. I mean, nowadays, if I saw a pocket froze over, I wouldn't even get close to it. I'd be like, eh. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you definitely have that fishing brain too that your dad is notorious for, but you definitely have it too and I see that, and I'm sure other anglers and fans of the sport see it too when they're watching you on live. You break it down like you're doing something completely off the chain, but it's what you have confidence in, and I think there's something to be said about that for an angler that's just going to go fish what he's confident in. It's like going back to Hamilton, there's going to be a lot of guys with A-rigs on the deck. There's going to be a lot of guys that leave that morning that have 10 rods on the deck with 10 variations of A-rigs. That's just the way it is in Arkansas.
Yep.
But you put your head down and pick up the jig and pick up the little crankbait and fish shallow and know what you know how to do. And you walked away victorious last year, and there's a good chance you'll be in the top 10 this year.
Well, hopefully, I like Hamilton. We had the super tournament over last year too. And I just mean Hamilton job, but I fish it so much. That's the thing. I fish it so much. But, I have people ask me all the time, especially since I got back on tour. I've had guys around here ask me, trying to get me to go out with them and show them some stuff and, teach them some things about these lakes around here. And I do. I go out and I help them out and show them the way I do things. But like I tell them, the only way you can ever really get good on a body of water is to learn it your way, because nobody does it your way. And if you try and do it somebody else's way, it'll never work for you like it does them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I'll tell them, you just got to learn these bodies of water by yourself. Yeah, I went out. I grew up fishing my dad. And a lot of people say, well, you're so good on these lakes because you had 30 years of knowledge on them by the time you were 10 years old. But I didn't. My dad did two things. He threw a jig and he threw a spinnerbait. That was it. That's all he threw. I don't throw a jig or a spinnerbait nowadays. And the place you caught fish then, you don't catch fish now. It was totally different fishing back then. So no, everything I've learned on my own. I've had no help. It's all been on my own on all these bodies of water. But, so yeah, and I have fallen in love with the four-faced sonar too. I'm not trying to get off on that subject, but I absolutely love it. It is addicting. And I'm just telling you, it is so addicting.
So you're one of the anglers, instead of like talking about it and, it shouldn't be in tournaments or, having an opinion about it, you went out and spent your time learning it, and now you're proficient with it.
Absolutely. I could care less if they allowed it or not, because I'm going to tell you, it doesn't matter if they allow it or not. Everybody that is doing it at the pro level has it or has access to it. So it is a completely level playing field. But as long as it's available to us and we can use it, you better know how to use it, because the guys that do know how to use it are going to beat you if it's allowed to use it. But I can tell you this right now. It doesn't matter. You could take live sonar away or four-faced sonar away. You can take everything we've got on our boats away and put us in 10-foot John boats with a 10-volt trolling, 12-volt trolling motor, and I promise you it's going to be the same 10 guys in the top 10 almost every time. It doesn't matter. These guys, the guys that finish in the top 10 or finish in the top 10, 95% of them, because they're just that good. You know what I mean? Look at Mike Iaconelli. He won the kayak national championship last year. He didn't have his $90,000 bass boat. He still beat them guys. You know what I mean?
No, and I have to admit, as a fan of the sport, I watched that weigh-in, and that was the happiest I've seen Mike Iaconelli since he won Angler of the Year in 2009 or 2000. Yeah, I believe it was 9. So,
and it goes back to the guys that's qualified for the leaps that left the leaps. It's gone back to the leaps. They did it in their first year nearly. There's been guys out there trying to do it for 10 years. The Gerald Swindle, Brennan Pollinut, Hackney, all them guys, they did it their first year back. You know what I mean?
My argument is I'm not one way or the other. My argument is back in the 80s when the chatterbait was invented, people argued that needed to be banned because it was a piece of metal. It wasn't generic to the other baits that we had. When the Alabama rig came out in 2011, it needs to be banned. It's not generic. It's not necessarily banned in all tournament organizations, but I do agree it needs to have limitations. This is just one other tool to put into the arsenal that's going to get better and better. And I can promise you that you think forward-facing sonar is good now, give it a couple of years. Those companies are continuously hiring new talent, new engineers, getting out there, doing the new ingenuity to figure out what's next. And it's just a tool that we all need to put into our arsenal, But back in the day, we didn't have 250 horsepower boats with 21-foot bass boats, that they were pushing. But that's where we're at today. And the anglers that adapt to those things and make it work for themselves, God bless them. And that's the way fishing is supposed to be. And honestly, they still have to put them in the boat. You can be looking at all those suckers you want. If you can't put them in the boat, that doesn't do anything for you.
Deal, man. That's the deal. I mean, I know how to use it, and I crappie fish 80% of the time with it. I mean, when I'm in a tournament, I've always used my live scope, obviously for bass too, if you can. You go to Florida most of the time, it's useless down there. But I crappie fish with it a lot, and there's no way. There's so many crappie. You would never fish it out. I can pull up on a school of 5,000 crappie, and the most you're usually ever going to catch out of them is 8 or 10 in a day. That's going back to them 3 or 4 times. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's impossible. So
yeah. But I don't know, man. That forward-facing sonar, it's absolutely unbelievable in Florida when you're saltwater fishing.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine out there.
You pull up to a bridge piling with that snook on it, and it's unbelievable what you can see with that thing.
Yeah, I would like to experience that. I've never saltwater fished before, and that's one thing I would love to do. I would love to go catch a redfish. I would love to catch a speckled trout. I would love to catch a tarpon, and I'd love to catch a red snapper and a snook.
Spencer, when you come down here in a few weeks, may just have to change that for you, buddy.
I've never saltwater fished in my life, man. I want to go so bad. So,
and you and I have been friends for a long time, and not picking on you or anything, not joshing you, but I would love to see you hook into about a 40-inch snook.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, that would. It's probably a little better than a 50-pound striper, isn't it?
It's just a little bit, and they pull pretty good.
Yeah, we'll catch them on top water.
We can catch them on top water. A lot of guys use jigs down here. There's obviously live bait. That's something that everybody's using, but you're more of a man if you can catch them with artificial, just in my opinion. But I mean, you're using an 80-pound leader with 30 to 40-pound braid on a main line that's on a 8-foot spinning rod that's about as equivalent to our big flipping sticks and an 8,000 size reel. And I've hooked into snook and seen people hook into snook that you can't turn. Like, even with all that equipment, you cannot turn it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty unbelievable. We'll have to make sure that happens. But yeah, man. So before we get off here, man, I just want to give you the platform. Any other final thoughts? Anybody you want to thank? Sponsors, family, anybody like that? Man, this is the time for Spencer Shuffield.
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, I couldn't do it without sponsors. It took a chance on me coming back in 2020. Hardcore Yo-Zuri. I've been with Blazer Boats the last 2 years. Mercury, Power Pole. This year's I've had Garmin units the last 2 years. This is my first year running a Garmin 4-stroll motor. I've had it on the water about 4 times now since I've got it, and I'm so amazed with that thing. It's awesome, the strength of it. But Phoenix Rods, man, I've been with them for like 10 years now, and all of them, couldn't do it without that. But it's not necessarily just their support, but it's having the confidence in my equipment that I'm using. I mean, that's right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, having the confidence in what you're using. I mean, you can say, yeah, well, they're paying him whatever. That's why I'm saying that. But I truly have confidence in these companies, and that's why I'm with them, is because of the confidence that their baits produce. These rods are going to produce. You know what I mean? This line, all of that, the boat. I mean, I've had my Blazer 2 years in a row now up on Sturgeon Bay in that big water, and then Lake Ontario last year and St. Lawrence River. It just handles that big water, that big rough water so well, and all of that, man. It's just a lot of confidence. My family, obviously, my wife really supported me the last couple of years, and been a big motivator in my fishing career, and that was a big part of me getting back to it and doing what I did. So no doubt. Friends, family, everybody, fans, a lot of stuff. A lot of people really, you really find out who your friends are. You know what I'm saying? And believe it or not, I had a lot more friends than I thought I had when I got back to fishing full time again. There was a lot more people really pushing and supporting me than I thought I had. So that was really good to see.
Yeah, you deserve it, Spencer. I mean, I know you took a hiatus there, but it was for the better of yourself. And, I just a friend of yours and a fan of yours as well. When I saw you step away, it was for the right reasons. You were very honest with everything, and we all knew you were going to come back. I mean, one thing about you, and it's a true testament to all the other anglers out there, whether you're in college or in high school, you're a weekend warrior wanting to get to the next level, whatever your dreams may be in the fishing industry, you got to have a good work ethic. And Spencer, you've always had that. I mean, I remember the one time we went practicing together, and it's like, okay, be at the ramp at 5. And I'm like, 5? And it was dark when we got done. It was the longest day of fishing I've ever had in my life. And that's what told me you were the original person that showed me this is what it takes. If you ever want to do it right, this is what it takes. I mean, and I'll never forget that day. It was the day that you and I went fishing in the Everstart boat on DeGray. We were just fun fishing. But it's like a day on the water to me is a day on the water. We're going to do it all day.
And then we spent a day on Chickamauga together too, I believe.
We did. I remember that very, very vividly. And, even at that, you had great fish found, and you pulled off early just to go make sure your equipment was in tip-top shape. I mean, even that showed me, like, you got to take that boat to the service trailer once in a while. You got to go get those little things looked at. That's just part of it. Find time to do that because it serves you in the long run.
Yeah, there's a lot of dedication in this sport, no doubt. And so you really have to dedicate some time to it. And I didn't quite dedicate the time to fishing. In the last 14 months, I haven't dedicated the time I should have been dedicating just because my kids have gotten older and my wife bought a house. But that's something I know this year has got to change because I suffered from it last year a little bit in my fishing. Still had a good year, finished 29th in the points, but I suffered from it a little bit. And I could tell I was just not quite as sharp and quick to make the right decisions on the water when I was fronted with a situation. I should have had an answer for it a little quicker, and it would take me just a little longer to put the pieces of the puzzle together that the year before I put it together right away. And you would think, well, once you've seen it a million times, you just know. But it ain't like that on the water, man. It's different every time. It's like, I see the same conditions every winter. Water 44 to 48, but the fish seem like they never do the same thing. They never do.
I think that's why a lot of anglers will argue that fishing is the hardest sport that there is because it always changes. And I mean, I'm not going to get into that. I know how hard it is for me and other anglers, but it does. It changes every single day.
Every sport, you're dealing with an inanimate object. Mm-hmm. And with fishing, you're dealing with something that's got a brain, and we can't see what it's actually doing. In football, you see what your opponent's doing. You're seeing it with your eye. You're seeing them move to the left. You're seeing them move to the right. If they're speeding up, if they're about to throw, if they're about to shoot. You can't see that in fishing. Yeah, and somebody could argue, you got live scope. You can see everything they do. Can't make them bite, though.
Live scope doesn't show you if they're largemouth or crappie. I'm sorry, they don't.
No, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is even though if they're down on bottom, you still not going to see them. I mean, a fish got to be 2 to 3 foot up off the bottom, and you can't see them.
And knowing my luck, I would spend 20 minutes with a drop shot, like always right on the bottom. He's holding close to the bottom. It'll be a 20-pound flathead. That's just kind of how I roll sometimes.
I've done it with a crappie jig multiple times and with a drop shot on fish. You see sitting on the bottom, you see them down there pulsating on the signal, and you getting a bait down there in front of finally they bite, and it's a dang 8 to 10-pound flathead or a blue cat or a channel cat or something or a drum. You're like, gosh. I just wasted 10 minutes trying to catch that thing. Dang fish.
And I can't tell you how exciting and exhilarating it is for me to catch a big flathead on a drop shot. Like, I just love coming up with that big old slime ball and everything. I've gotten to where I just cut it off at the main line and just say, I'm just going to completely retie.
Yep, you have to.
It's a mess. It's a mess. So, well, Spencer, once again, it's been an honor to have you on with Revital Outdoors this evening. Thank you for giving your insight to the BFL Arkie Division tournament coming up on Lake Hamilton. We wish you the best of luck. Hope to see you defend your title. And beyond that, good luck this year, brother, on the pro circuit. And I know you're going to have a great year, man. You got a great mindset. I can already tell.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it, buddy.
Yep. See ya.
Bye. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our podcast with Mr. Spencer Shuffield from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Again, just a reminder, he was the champion of the BFL Arkie Division tournament last year on Lake Hamilton. That tournament series is starting again this year on Lake Hamilton, and sounds like he gave a lot of great insight for the anglers getting ready for that tournament. So we wish Spencer all the best, and all the anglers out there that are fishing the BFL Arkie Division on Lake Hamilton. Be safe out there, guys. Make sure you have a lot of fun. From all of us at Revital Outdoors, thank you for tuning into another podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. Also, check us out on our social media accounts. That's going to be Facebook and Instagram. And if you're interested in Revital Outdoors, if you're an avid tournament angler or avid hunter that is curious about our pro staff opportunities, check out our website, hit the pro staff tab, and then you can scroll down and find where you can apply to be on our pro staff. But also, if you've never heard of Revital, you don't know much about CBD for the outdoors, check out our website. We've got all of our information about our product, our lineup. We have information about our product being THC-free, made in America, and it being something that every outdoor enthusiast needs to include as they get ready to prepare for their hunting season or their fishing trips. So from all of us at Revital Outdoors, thank you for tuning in. I'm Theron Asbury. Be safe out there. God bless, and we will talk to you soon.